Hi, I'm Janet Stone, a Vinyasa yoga teacher based in San Francisco, and really wanted to share this great discovery of the five elements and balancing the five elements both in our daily living and also in our practice. So I practiced for many years and found each asana really wonderful and challenging, and would get into them in separate ways of here this is chaturanga, this is upward facing dog. But as I began to discover the five elements, it really felt this great integration. And sometimes I'd notice that I was a little more into the earth. Sometimes I'd notice I was a little bit more into the airy space, and I'd look for within my asana practice that balance. And so as I began to explore it, I really felt the great connection of what it is to integrate and to be mindful of the five great elements. So in the beginning, it is said that before there was even a ripple, there was unmanifest, and then this sound, it was empty, dark, void, and then this great sound came, the sound of Om. And that Om rippled and created the ether, created this akasha, this context in a sense. Created this great space. And from that space, the great akasha began to blow, and it turned into vayu, it turned into air, this wind. This wind that becomes prana, that becomes our breath, that becomes this understanding of living. And from there, that began to create friction with the little particles. And from that friction became heat. From the heat, fire. And so Agni, this great transforming power, came into being, into essence. And from there, as that started to melt and would cool, and it turned into liquid. That liquid is apas, is water. And so then from there, we start to feel the fluidity of this living, the fluidity of our breath, of our body, of the movements of life. And as that began to freeze and harden, became earth, this great solid nature. And so from earth, we think it's very stable and very steady and sturdy. But if you look carefully, of course, it's always moving subtly. So I actually begin my practice at the earth. So instead of starting at akasha, I begin at the earth. I feel where my feet and my body and my legs touches down into the earth, allowing me to feel grounded. Because sometimes I get a little bit too up in the air and floating around, so I ground down. And from there, I start to feel some flow of my internal system, but also the flow of life and living. And that really initiates this great fire and connection to Agni, this heat of transformation. So within our inner system, we take in nutrients, and somewhere in that fire, it needs to be discerned, nutrients from waste. And so that's the great fire. And so Swaha, we offer a lot of this information that we get, a lot of this living that we get into the great fire. And then the great air, the air lives around the heart, and there's this remembrance in each breath of air. And then the space that holds it all, and the space that's in between, the space in between the thoughts, the space in between our movements, the space between conversations, the space between relationships. So I invite you to explore at some point what it might be to start to integrate and recognize balancing in the five great elements. Om Namah Shivaya.